Good morning, everybody. My name is Dennis Levin. I'm a retired pastor here at Queen Street United Methodist Church in downtown Kinston, North Carolina. Welcome to our Wesley Bible class. And you have joined us right when we're starting 2 Samuel. What a blessing. But, well, we'll see if it is or not. But welcome to our class, and if you're following us online, if you like what we're doing, give me a thumbs up. If you don't like what we're doing, just keep it to yourself. And but I'm open to any questions or comments or snide remarks anybody has to say about the class. So anyway, we start out 2 Samuel with, once again, the Bible contradicts itself. Okay? So what we have from the end of 1 Samuel was the death of Saul and his sons in a battle with the Philistines. And apparently, in 1 Samuel, Saul is severely wounded, knows he's going to be captured, wants to avoid not only the torture but the embarrassment of Israel if the Philistines capture him alive. And so he decides that he wants his armor bearer to kill him. But the armor bearer will not, who is an Israelite, will not touch the anointed of the Lord. That's a recurring theme in all of David's writings. I don't know why that is. But anyway, no touching the anointed of the Lord, even if he asks you to. And so Saul then falls on his sword and kills himself. And his armor bearer, out of a sense of loyalty and honor, decides to do the same. So he falls on his sword. Okay, now we're going to pick it up in 2 Samuel. After the death of Saul, when David had returned from defeating the Amalekites, David remained 2 days in Ziklag. Okay, now what's happened is that the Philistines invited David to the dance in the battle with Saul, and the Philistines' generals and lords don't want David and his riffraff anywhere near the battlefield. The king wants him to be his armor bearer, which means it puts him right next to the king in the battle. You can imagine the opportunity for David. So he goes back to Ziklag, a Philistine town that the king has given him. And while they were gone, the Amalekites raided the town and captured all the women and children and carried them off and burned the place. And so David went after the Amalekites. So now he's come back from the Amalekites. The battle with the Philistines is over. Okay? David doesn't have any reports on the battle at this point. Okay? On the third day, a man came from Saul's camp with his clothes torn and dirt on his head. When he came to David, he fell to the ground and did obeisance. David said to him, "Where have you come from?" He said to him, "I have escaped from the camp of Israel." David said to him, "How did things go? Tell me." He answered, "The army fled from the battle, but also many of the army fell and died, and Saul and his son Jonathan also died." I noticed that he left out the other sons of Saul that died also. Then David asked the young man who was reporting to him, "How do you know that Saul and his son Jonathan died?" The young man reported to him, saying, "It happened on Mount Gilboa, and there was Saul leaning on his spear, while the chariots and the horsemen drew close to him. When he looked behind him, he saw me and called to me. I answered, 'Here, sir.' And he said to me, 'Who are you?' I answered, 'I am an Amalekite,' not normally a friend of Saul." Remember, he was supposed to annihilate these people, and they just raided David's town. But anyway, what's he doing there? Also, he sees Saul leaning on his spear. There is no indication in the Amalekites' narrative that Saul has been wounded. He just sees him leaning on his spear. Okay, so he's using the spear for support. He seems to be very tired out, but he does not appear to be wounded in this story. And this is the same spear he threw at David and Jonathan, and that David picked up and showed him that he wasn't going to kill him, kind of thing. Spear figures pretty heavily in Saul's narrative. While the chariots and the horsemen drew close to him, when he looked behind him, he saw me and called me. I answered, "Here, sir." And he said, "Who are you?" He said, "I'm an Amalekite." He said to me, "Come, stand over me and kill me, for convulsions have seized me, and yet my life still lingers. Okay, so there's an indication that he was wounded. Okay? So I stood over him and killed him, for I knew that God could not live, that he could not live after he had fallen. I took the crown that was on his head and the armlet that was on his arm, and I have brought them here to my Lord. Now these are the symbols of royalty. Okay? So he brings those symbols of royalty to David. And there's no indication, I don't think, in the story where David passes them on to Saul's remaining son. Seems like he hangs on to them for some reason, I don't know. Then David took hold of his clothes and tore them, and all the men with him did the same. They mourned and wept and fasted until evening for Saul and for his son Jonathan and for the army of the Lord, for the house of Israel, because they had been struck down by the sword. David said to the young man who had reported to him, "Where do you come from?" He answered, "I am the son of a resident alien, an Amalekite." So it's a Gentile living in Israel. Okay? David said to him, "Were you not afraid to lift your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed?" Then David called one of the young men and said, "Come here and strike him down." So he struck him down and he died. David said to him, "Your blood be on your head, for your own mouth has testified against you, saying, I have killed the Lord's anointed." Is David trying to make a point here? Who else is the Lord's anointed?
He is.
He is. So is anybody allowed to strike him down? No. Okay, this is kind of what we call a precedent. All right. David intoned this lamentation over Saul and his son Jonathan. He ordered that the song of the bow be taught to the people of Judah. It is written in the book of Jashar. Jashar means like the book of the honored dead. That's kind of what Jashar stands for. It's not the guy Jashar wrote it. It's their chronicle of heroes of Israel. Okay. He said, this is written in the form of a psalm, which is David's style, which is Hebrew poetry style. You're going to see couplets in this where you say something and then to emphasize the point you say it a different way. So there's a statement and then a following statement that validates the first statement. That's whereas in our poetry, some of our poetry, there's rhyming. You know, you have words that rhyme. In Hebrew poetry, you have couplets, and that's the style of the Psalms. Your glory, O Israel, lies slain upon your high places. How the mighty have fallen. The high places are places of worship, and so it's almost like he's saying Saul is like a sacrifice to the Lord because he died on one of the high places where you would normally do a sacrifice. Tell it not in Gath. Gath is Goliath's hometown. Okay, Gath was the abode of King Achish of the Philistines. Okay, tell it not in Gath, proclaim it not in the streets of Ashkelon, or the daughters of the Philistines will rejoice, the daughters of the uncircumcised will exult. That is an insult in the Jewish community, uncircumcised. But you see where there's kind of a couplet there. Okay, which is, and what he's saying, don't do it, is precisely what the Philistines did. Once they found it was Saul who was dead, they took his armor and they took it, and I think they took it to Ashkelon, and they put it in the temple of Astarte, and they beheaded Saul's body, and they hung his body and Jonathan's body on the walls of the city in northern Israel. Okay. You mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew or rain upon you, nor bounteous fields, for there the shield of the mighty was defiled, the shield of Saul anointed with oil no more. David is issuing a curse. You want to know if curses are allowed in the Bible? There's a curse. He cursed Mount Gilboa. Okay? There are a number of places where even Jesus did a curse There was a fig tree that didn't bear figs when he wanted a fig, and he cursed it and it died. You know, just saying. You know, I haven't tried it yet, but behave yourselves. Okay? So, for there the shield of the mighty was defiled, the shield of soil, the anointed with oil no more. Which means that the monarchy is dead. The monarchy now is vacant. Okay? Saul's reign is over. That's an interesting proclamation from David. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan did not turn back, nor the sword of Saul return empty. So he is remarking that, and I agree with him, that both Saul and Jonathan were heroes because they went into battle. Saul especially went into battle knowing that he was going to lose and that he would be killed, but he still went to the defense of Israelite territory. You know, it was a forlorn hope, but he wasn't going to just roll over and let the Philistines have it without a contest. So he was, you know, in my mind, the guy's a hero. He's willing to take on even a suicide mission to defend his people, and Jonathan likewise. Saul and Jonathan, yeah.
I'll just say Jonathan was kind of the unsung hero. I mean, yeah, most stories in the Bible, usually even the Jews, the ones that are killed, are bad guys or not following God's will. And Jonathan seemed to follow God's will and was a friend of David's. And so it just, to me, it just seems rare that a guy like Jonathan in the Bible is one that gets killed because he was not really, didn't dishonor God or go against God. Anyway.
I think it's interesting also that there were two other sons were killed. Okay.
You don't really know a lot about them.
No, you don't hear about that.
But with Jonathan's death, it assures that David will definitely be the one that takes the crown.
No.
No.
Because he had other sons, Ishbosheth or whatever it is.
Yeah, but all these kings had other sons, basically.
Well, that's why they did. So there would be a succession.
Yeah, but we have kings that had sons that did not, their sons did not follow them to the throne.
I can think of some in England now that I'm just as happy that they didn't make it.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway.
But Jonathan just seemed to be a good guy.
He was. Jonathan
He knew his dad was doing wrong, and he befriended David, and they just made a bond. And then for Jonathan to get killed and all this is just seems to be, I don't know, the darkest part of the story.
Well, it really is, because Jonathan was not just faithful to the Lord, he was also faithful to David, offered to be number 2 behind David, okay? And one of the things that I'm impressed with about Jonathan is that guy was a fighter. He was like our special ops. You know, you weren't going to deter Jonathan from getting into a mix-up with any Philistine. He was going to be there and do his thing. But anyway, he died, and he was the crown prince. Okay, and I had Jonathan's son mixed up with Saul's son. Jonathan's son was the one who was lame. It wasn't Saul's son who was lame. Okay, Saul's 4th son was not lame. He was in good health. But he didn't die in the battle. Saul and Jonathan, beloved and lovely in life and in death, they were not divided. Well, I don't know. Saul threw a spear at him one time. I thought that might have been a kind of domestic issue. But they were swifter than eagles. They were stronger than lions. O daughters of Israel, weep over Saul, who clothed you with crimson and luxury, who put ornaments of gold on your apparel. How the mighty have fallen in the midst of battle. Okay, that's a classic statement you hear, how the mighty have fallen. You know, anytime that I hear that a king has been clothed in crimson and in luxury, who put ornaments of gold on your apparel. I'm just wondering where they got all that stuff. Kings tend to get that from their own people, not just spoils of war. Jonathan lies slain upon your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. Greatly beloved were you to me. Your love to me was wonderful, passing the love of women. And some people have taken that in our modern age to think that there was some kind of a homosexual relationship between David and Jonathan. BS, okay? I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way. What they're talking about is the comradeship of people who are warriors, who fight in battle together, side by side, who's got each other's back. And there's a bond between combatants who find themselves in the same foxhole, and you can be very different from the person who is in that foxhole with you. But boy, when you're in that foxhole together, there's nothing going to tear you apart. Okay, how the mighty have fallen, he says it again, and the weapons of war perished. Okay, so how the mighty have fallen appears, I think, 3 times. I think he starts out with, yeah, it's 3 times. The scholars believe that this is an authentic lament of David. And it's different in characteristic from other laments that you find that David has written or commissioned. In this lament, it is a story of personal grief. And in other laments, it's a complaint to God. Okay, first of all, it's a recognition of the power and glory and mighty and just thinking of God. And then there's a complaint. Because I know that you can solve this. Okay? And I know that you've paid attention to this because you don't miss a thing. Okay, that's the thing of the lament. And then there is at the end of the lament a deal. If you will save me, if you will protect me from my enemies, then I will give you glory to all the people and proclaim your name everywhere, and give you thanks. And that's kind of the pattern of most laments. This lament is really more like you see at a funeral, where a person is expressing their grief over the loss of someone who is beloved by them. Okay, and you can see that he really likes Jonathan more than Saul, but that's to be expected. But he gives honor to Saul. He's the first king, and David doesn't want to take any of that away from him. Doesn't want to take anything, with all of his faults, all of his flaws. David does not want to take away the legitimacy of Saul's monarchy, and he doesn't want to take away even from the character of Saul, even though that was questionable during all of 1 Samuel. Okay. Okay. Let's move on to chapter 2. Yeah. After this, David inquired of the Lord, "Shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah?" The Lord said to him, "Go up, David. To which shall I go up?" He said, "To Hebron." Now this is Judah. This is the southern tribe. Okay, this is the place where David's been hanging out while Saul has been after him. And Hebron is really the major city in Judah. So what's going on? If David is going to consolidate his support, then he needs to be in a place where his support counts the most. Okay, it's something like when we see our elections and a state votes one way, but the cities vote another. Okay, and the cities prevail because there's more people in the cities. Okay, so he's going to Hebron because that's where the power is. So David went up there along with his 2 wives, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. So at this point he's got 2 wives. David brought up the men who were with him, every one of with his household, and they settled in the towns of Hebron. Then the people of Judah came and they anointed David king over the house of Judah. So now he is the tribal leader of Judah, which is something like the king of Virginia among the 13 colonies. Okay? Virginia was the preeminent, most wealthy colony of the 13. And so they made him the king of Judah. Okay. When they told David it was the people of Jabesh Gilead who buried Saul, David sent messengers to the people of Jabesh Gilead. That's way up north. Okay, that's right at the top of Israel territory. And these are the people who were on the east side of the Jordan that the Philistines threatened, that Saul went up and rescued. Okay, when they found out that Saul's body had been desecrated, they pulled a raid and got Saul and Jonathan's bodies off of the walls and took them back and gave them an honorable funeral. Okay. May you be blessed by the Lord because you showed this loyalty to Saul your Lord and buried him. Now may the Lord show steadfast love and faithfulness to you, and I too will reward you. What is David doing talking to this northern tribe? Okay, well, what he's doing is he is currying favor with the other tribes of Israel. Okay? But he's got a reason to do this. Because you have done this thing, therefore let your hands be strong and valiant, for Saul your Lord is dead, and the house of Judah has anointed me king over them. Just saying. Now there's Ishbaal. But Abner, son of Ner, commander of Saul's army, had taken Ishbaal, son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim. He made him king over Gilead, north again, the Asherites, Jezreel, Ephraim, Benjamin, and all Israel. Now Benjamin is down there next to Judah, so it's the border between north and south. Ishbaal, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel. He reigned 2 years, but the house of Judah followed David. The time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. Okay,
This
so
threw me off because I thought all the sons were dead.
they aren't. No, there's one son living. There's a fourth son. He was saved by Saul's general, who also beat feet off of the battlefield. Okay. Okay, Abner, son of Ner, Abner is a general, son of Ner, the servants of Ishbaal, son of Saul, went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon. Joab, son of Zeruiah, the servants of David, went out and met them at the pool of Gibeon. Now Joab is David's general. Okay, Abner was Saul's general. Now he's Ishbaal's general. So they're having a meeting to see if they can live peaceably side by side. So it's a kind of a diplomatic thing, but they have a funny way of doing it. Joab, son of Zeruiah, and the servants of David went out and met them at the pool of Gibeon. One group sat on one side of the pool, while the other sat on the other side of the pool. They're playing pool. Okay. Abner said to Joab, "Let the young man come forward and have a contest before us." You would think that's Monopoly, but it's not. Okay. Joab said, "Let them come forward." So they came forward and were counted as they passed by, 12 from Benjamin and Ishbaal, son of Saul, and 12 from the servants of David. Each grasped his opponent by the head and thrust his sword in his opponent's side, so they fell down together. It's what they call a draw, because they drew swords. Okay? Therefore the place was called Helkat Hazurim, which is at Gibeon. The battle was very fierce that day, and Abner and his men of Israel were beaten by the servants of David. So it didn't just stop there. The three sons of Zeruiah were there, Joab, Abishai, and Asahel. Now Asahel was as swift of foot as a wild gazelle. Asahel pursued Abner, turning neither to the right nor to the left as he followed him. Then Abner looked back and said, "Is it you, Asahel?" He said, "Yes, it is." And Abner said to him, "Turn to your right or your left and seize one of the young men and take his spoil. You're going to be deterred." Okay? But Asahel would not turn away from following him. Abner said again to Asahel, "Turn away from following me. Why should I strike you to the ground? How then could I show my face to your brother Joab?" Okay, so this is Joab's brother chasing this guy. But he refused to turn away. So Abner struck him in the stomach with the butt of his spear, so that the spear came out at his back. That's a wonderful graphic thing. He fell there and died where he lay, and all those who came to the place where Asahel had fallen and died stood still. Okay, now what's going on here? Asahel is chasing Abner. Abner gives him an opportunity to break it off. You know, the battle's over. We lost. We're beaten feet. Okay. Don't want to fight you. Don't want to do anything to hurt you. Just take some of the loot and go on. Well, he doesn't. So they do come to blows, and evidently the butt of the spear is as pointed as the front of the spear, and so he kills him there. Okay, now he's killed Joab's brother. But Joab and Abishai pursued Abner as the sun was going down. They came to the hill of Hamath, which lies before Giah, on the way to the wilderness of Gibeon. The Benjaminites rallied around Abner and formed a single band. They took their stand over the top of the hill. Then Abner called to Joab, "Is the sword to keep devouring forever? Do you not know that the end will be bitter? How long will it be before you order your people from the pursuit of their kinsmen?" Joab said, "As God lives, if you had not spoken, the people would have continued to pursue their kinsmen, not stopping until morning." Joab sounded the trumpet, and all the people stopped. They no longer pursued Israel or engaged in battle any further. Okay. What Joab is seeing is that Abner has fled to a very defensible position. He really doesn't have the means to do anything to Abner. And Abner is saying, "Look, it's futile. Why do you stick around?" So Joab seems to accept that. He seems to accept that. And it's rational. He backs off. Abner and his men traveled all that night through Arabah. They crossed the Jordan and marched the whole forenoon. They came to Mahanaim, and Joab returned from the pursuit of Abner. And when he had gathered all the people together, there were missing of David's servant 19 men beside Asahel. But the servants of David had killed of Benjamin 360 of Abner's men. They took up Asahel and buried him in the tomb of his father, which was at Bethlehem. Joab and his men marched all night, and the day broke upon them at Hebron. All right, so this looks like the end of the story, okay? But it's just the beginning of the story. And there are things that are going to have consequences way into 2 Samuel and way into 1 Kings. So while this episode is over, it ain't over till it's really over. Okay? We'll see what happens in subsequent chapters. All right. Well, if you have any, like I say, questions, comments, or snide remarks, pass them on. Subscribe to us if you like where we're going with this, and give me a good thumbs up. And if you're going to give me a thumbs down, you can send me a comment. But it's good to have you with me and with this class. Hope you're learning something out of this, and I am. So take care. God bless.
Could you make a flow chart?
Say again?
Could